Chapter 5. In the Hospital. Mark was asleep in front of the television when a nurse found him next morning. She gave him some orange juice and took him to Ricky's room. "Dr. Greenway is here," she said, "and he wants to see you." Diane looked tired. She stood at the foot of Ricky's bed, and her hands were shaking. Mark stood next to her, and she put her arm on his shoulder. They watched as the doctor touched Ricky's head and spoke to him. Ricky's eyes were closed. "He doesn't hear you, Doctor," Diane said finally. She didn't like the way Greenway was using baby talk. Greenway continued touching and talking. Diane had tears in her eyes. Mark smelled fresh soap and noticed her hair was wet. She had changed her clothes, too, but there was no makeup. Greenway stood straight. "A very bad case," he said, staring at Ricky's closed eyes. "What's next?" said Diane. "We wait," said the doctor. "He'll wake up, and when he does, it's very important that you are in this room. He must see his mother when he opens his eyes. Do you understand?" "I'm not leaving," said Diane. Greenway looked at Mark. "You can come and go a bit, but it's best if you stay here as much as possible, too." Mark nodded his head, but he knew he would get bored. "Have you seen cases like this before?" asked Diane. Greenway looked at Ricky and decided to tell the truth. He shook his head. "Not quite this bad," he said. "But I'm not worried. Ricky will be all right. It'll just take some time." He took a card and a newspaper from his bag. "Here's my phone number," he said. "If Ricky wakes up, tell the nurses and they'll call me immediately, okay?" Diane took the card and nodded. Greenway opened the newspaper. "Have you seen this?" he asked. "No," she answered. "Well, you better read it. It's about Mr. Clifford." Mark looked at the paper and saw a big photo of Romy. Underneath the photo he read, "Mafia lawyer shoots himself." The word mafia jumped at Mark, and suddenly he felt sick. Greenway leaned forward and spoke softly to Diane. "It seems that Mr. Clifford was a well-known lawyer in New Orleans. He was working on a murder case. The police and the FBI are downstairs. They want to talk to Mark." "Why?" asked Diane. "It's a big case. The murdered man was a senator. You'll understand more when you read this story. Then you can talk to them." "No," said Mark suddenly. Diane and Greenway looked at him. "I don't want to talk to them," said Mark. I might get like Ricky if I have to talk about it," he added. "Keep them away for now," said Diane. "All right," said the doctor. "I'll keep them away until 12. Now, don't worry. Just stay by this bed until I come back." Greenway left. Diane ran to the bathroom with the newspaper and lit a cigarette. Mark turned on the television by Ricky's bed and found the news program. Nothing but weather and sports. Diane came back into the room. "Clifford's client killed a United States senator," she said slowly. "I wonder why he did that," said Mark, because he could think of nothing different to say. It says Jerome Clifford worked for the New Orleans Mafia, and they think his client is a member. Mark had seen film about the Mafia on television. His heart jumped, and he felt pains in his stomach. I'm hungry, Mom. Are you hungry? Why didn't you tell me the truth, Mark? I'm sorry, Mom. I planned to tell you when we were alone. Diane looked sad and tired. You never lie to me, Mark. I'm really hungry, Mom. Can we talk about this later? Give me some money, and I'll run down to the cafe and get us something to eat. Don't you want some coffee? Luckily, Diane wasn't ready for a serious talk yet. She opened her purse and gave him $5. Mark took the money and put it in his pocket. You know where the cafe is? Asked Diane. He nodded. Be careful, she said, and sat down again to watch Ricky. Mark left the room. He needed time to think. Chapter 6. Reggie Love. As Mark ate his breakfast in the cafe, he looked at Gil Teal's card. He knew what he needed to do. He took some coffee back to his mother and gave her a kiss. I'm going to look around the hospital for a bit, he told her, and left the room again. He asked the nurses for a phone book and looked at the city map. Gil Teal's office was not far away. Then he went downstairs again and left the hospital by a back door. Mark walked quickly. It was Tuesday, and he was the only kid on the street. He didn't want anyone to ask why he wasn't at school. Gil Teal's building was old and very tall. He entered the lift with a crowd of others and went to the 3rd floor. When he got out, he was in a long hall with a lot of doors. He tried to walk calmly, looking at the names on the doors. They were all lawyers, but he wanted Gil Teal. At the end of the hall, he found the right door. The words, Gil Teal, the People's Lawyer, were painted on it. 3 people waited by the door. Mark entered the office. It was crowded with sad, sick people, just like the hospital. Mr. Teal certainly had a lot of clients. What do you want? Said someone rudely. Mark answered softly, I'd like to see Mr. Teal. Does he know you? No, ma'am. Did you have an accident? No, ma'am. Well, you're in the wrong place. Why do you need a lawyer? It's private, said Mark. Look, kid, you see all these people? They're all waiting to see Mr. Teal. He's a very busy man, and he only takes accident cases. Okay, said Mark. He was glad to leave the crowded office. He took the stairs and walked around the 2nd floor. More lawyers. He passed a few of them in the hall. They were too busy to notice him. Suddenly, he saw a policeman coming towards him. The next door had Reggie Love, lawyer, painted on it in small letters. Mark quickly opened the door and stepped inside. There was a glass table, some magazines, soft music, and 3 chairs, and nobody waiting. A young man with a tie but no jacket sat behind a desk. May I help you? he said quite pleasantly. "I'd like to see a lawyer." "Aren't you a bit young?" "Yes, but I'm having some problems. Are you Mr. Love?" "No, I'm Clint. I'm Reggie's secretary." "Then I need to see Reggie," said Mark. "What's your name?" asked the secretary. "Mark Sway." "Are you in trouble, Mark?" "Yes." "What type of trouble? You need to tell me a little bit about it, or Reggie won't talk to you." "Well," said Mark, "I have to talk to the FBI at 12, and I think I need a lawyer." This was good enough. Clint went away for a moment, then came back. He took Mark to the lawyer's office. "This is Mark Sway," he said. "Hello, Mark," said the lawyer. "I'm Reggie Love." Mark looked at the lawyer in surprise. Reggie Love was a woman.